Thanks. Thank you. Great. So two initial comments. First of all, I'm told that I'm much better when people drink more. And the second thing, I feel like a classroom. You know, in the classroom, like nobody sits in the front rows. It's always empty. So come on. It's like a bad equilibria, right? Nobody's sitting up front. Everybody's suffering. My grandfather, who was an economist for the United Nations, explained to me once, what's inflation? I was maybe 6 or 7. And he said, inflation is like when everybody goes to see a concert, and the people in the first row decide to stand up. So then the people in the second row have to stand up. And the people in the third row, eventually everybody is standing up. Nobody sees better, but everybody's uncomfortable. Anyway, that's there. And so I want to try and do something different, which is, thankfully there's lots of irrational tendencies. There's a lot to talk about. Me and my students have worked for a long time. But I want to kind of figure out what are good topics to talk about. So I'll give you a few topics, and I want to for you to vote. So, I'll give you all the topics. Executive salaries, meaning at work, online dating, sexual arousal, adaptation, and happiness. Okay, so vote. Executive compensation, meaning at work, a few, sexual arousal, happiness, and adaptation, online dating. Okay, so let's start with happiness and adaptation. That's good because I've never talked about this, so it's kind of nice to talk about. So let's spend a few minutes thinking about this concept called adaptation. And adaptation is the idea that we get used to stuff faster than we think we would. And I'll give you a couple of stories about this. So the first one is that so I was in hospital for a long time, and I had to deal with lots of pain. And when I was out of hospital, one of my favorite professors had his both legs amputated. He was teaching us physiology. And it turns out that we were 20 years apart in the same department, in the same hospital, with some of the same nurses and the same doctors. So we saw some connection. But what was also interesting is that he kind of took his personal interest in pain and developed it into a career in terms of doing research on pain. And I kind of liked that a lot, and I think he had a tremendous influence on me. But from time to time, we would get together and talk about life, about hospital, about pain, about injuries. And one time I went to his office and I said, Hanan, I went to the dentist yesterday and I had a cavity and, they did a filling. And I basically said I don't need Novocaine. And they drilled without Novocaine, and it was painful, but it was okay. I mean, it was painful, but I didn't care so much. And he said that he did the same thing. He said for the last 20 years he hasn't taken Novocaine. And we started wondering, are we just two strange individuals? That we kind of developed some S&M tendencies? Or is there something about this idea that when you suffer a lot, somehow pain matters less? None of us thought that like the conduction of nerves in terms of pain has changed. But could it be that we just care less? So we went to a country club where was dedicated to veterans of the army. These are people who suffered lots and lots of different types of injuries. And there was a swimming pool and, basketball for the blind and lots of different activities. And we set up a little lab there. We took a tub of hot water, and we set it up, and we wrote an advertisement that says, hey, if you have some half an hour to spare, come and do a little study. And people stopped by, and we asked them to put their hand in hot water up to their elbow. And we asked them to keep it there until they couldn't keep it there any longer. And then to take it out, and we measured how long they kept it. And then we asked them to do the same thing with the other hand. So people did this. We had a group of people. And then we wanted to kind of figure out how does experience of pain matters. So we could, of course, compare them to like college undergrads or other people. But then the difference in population would be different as well, right? There will be different people. So instead what we decided to do was to take this group of people that were kind of homogeneous. Everybody was in the army. Everybody got injured in the army. Everybody was in the same country club. And we took their medical files, and we went to the hospital that Hanan and I were at before, and we gave it to the doctors and the nurses, the occupational therapists, and we asked them to split this pile into two piles. People who were severely injured, who were people who were not severely injured. And we said, let's look at those two groups. And the difference was incredible. The group that was severely injured basically held their hand in hot water for 60 seconds, and after 60 seconds, we told them to take it out because they could have gotten burned, right? So all but one of the people in the severely injured group held their hand in hot water for the entire duration. In the lightly injured group, none of them got to 60 seconds, right? So there was this tremendous difference, which first of all was a great comfort to us because it meant we're not the only people who dealt differently with pain. Now, if you think about it, it's incredibly adaptive, right? Imagine that you have to deal every day with pain. What are you going to do, right? Are you going to suffer every day to the same degree, or is your body going to adapt in some way and allow you to experience more pain with less misery, or the same amount of pain with less misery? But the really interesting thing, which we haven't got to follow up, was that there were two people in the study that didn't have the type of injuries we wanted. Like we wanted people who had injuries like us, acute injuries that happened once and then people recovered. There were two people in the set that had chronic injuries. One of them had a shrapnel in the stomach and had huge intestinal problems. The other one had something that basically cancer. And both of them came to the study. And when they came to do the study, I didn't know what to do. These were not the people I wanted in the study, but I didn't want to turn them away. I didn't want to inflict more pain of them unneededly, but it's data. So anyway, I decided to, So anyway, I decided to get them to do the study. And so here were the people with lots of painful experience, could suffer a lot of pain. People who had less, suffered less. What do you think were the people, these two individuals, who suffered a lot of pain, but not through acute injury, because of chronic injury? Where were they? Were able to resist pain more, the same, less? What do you think? They were the least. They had the least ability to withstand pain, less even than the people who were lightly injured. And the way I think about it is the following: it's really good to adjust to pain, to adapt to it, to be able to do it. At the same time, it's a question of what is the signal of pain. Right? And for people like Hanan and me, what was the signal of pain? When did we have a lot of pain? When we were treated. Occupational therapy, physical therapy, treatments, operations, bath treatments, all of those things that were connected with a lot of pain were also about getting us better. Not immediately, not always, but in principle. What about the people who had chronic injuries? Right? For them, the signal of the pain is very different. It's about dying sooner. Right? There's no positive effect on this. And the thought is that in addition to our ability to adjust to bad circumstances, there's also a question of how we attributed pain. I mean, pain is a signal that the brain gets. But at the same time, there's a question of what is the meaning of that signal. And for some people, we are able to, over time, learn to interpret that signal in a positive way and fear pain less. Right? If you're not afraid of pain, it's just pain. It's not that bad. But for some people, the fear element actually gets worse and worse, and therefore the ability to withstand pain goes down and down.